Last night I had a dream that I became the number 3 and was placed on a square. There were other squares all around me, and the squares were grouped into larger squares. Numbers started showing up in the other squares, within my larger square and the other larger squares. I looked up and down, and I noticed that there were a few other numbers, but I was the only number 3. Same thing when I looked left and right, and even in my larger square. I thought to myself, I get it. So I decided to wait, and I wondered what would happen when the rest of the squares were filled with numbers. Something pretty cool, I bet, and I was getting a little excited. Then something strange occurred. Another number 3 showed up in my larger square, in my line. I said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" The other number 3 said, "Is there a problem?" I said, "Yeah, there's a problem. You're in my larger square and you're also in my line." The other 3 said, "And?" I said, "You're not supposed to be in my larger square and you're not supposed to be in my line." The other 3 said, "Why?" I said, "That's the rules. There can only be one of each number in each line and in each larger square." The other 3 said, well, that's not fair." And I said, "Not fair?" The other 3 said, "Yeah, it's not fair. I like it where I am right now." I said, "Well, you can't do that." The other 3 said, "Why?" I said, "I'm already here and this is where I'm supposed to be. If this is going to work, you have to be where you're supposed to be." The other 3 said, "Well, I'm not happy about that." And I said, "Dude, this is not about happiness. This is about doing things right." The other 3 said, "You know what? That doesn't make any sense." And I said, "Doesn't make sense?" The other 3 said, "Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Is there a rule about 2 same numbers being in the same diagonal line?" And I said, "Well, no, but..." The other 3 said, "Well, there you go. Why is there no rule about that?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." The other 3 said, "Well, you know what? I don't want to be anywhere else. I'm going to stay right here." And I said, "But you can't." And the other 3 didn't say a word. I said, "You need to go to your square. You're going to screw things up." The other 3 stayed silent. I said, "Well, I'm not going to let this happen. I'm going to move you back to your square." The other 3 didn't budge. So I started moving to the other 3 square, but I couldn't. I tried to break through the wall, and I couldn't get out. I was trapped in my square, and there was nothing I could do about it. I said, "Damn it, he's going to mess things up now." But what could I do, really? The other numbers were arriving, and the rest of the squares were starting to fill up. I looked back at the other 3, and there it was, enjoying its square, even though it wasn't supposed to be there. I looked beyond the other 3, and I couldn't believe what I saw. There was a third number 3 in my line, but wait! There was also 2 number 5s in the same line. I looked all around me, and it hit me. Numbers started popping up everywhere where they shouldn't be. There were 6 number 9s in the lower right larger group of squares. There were 4 number 7s in the line going up and down. I was like, holy f***, what the hell is happening? There were only a few blank squares waiting for their numbers, and I was scared shitless that something really bad was going to happen. I whispered, "Oh my God," and I started praying when the last of the numbers filled their last squares. I was freaking out. I knew that something big was going to happen when all the squares were filled in. Something incredible or horrible, and I didn't want anything horrible to happen to me at all. I was horrified. I was starting to cry. Nothing was happening. I was petrified. There was other numbers like me who were just as scared, frozen like statues. But there were other numbers who were oblivious to it all, going about their business. And nothing else was happening. The fear was starting to slip away, and I was getting a bit confused. Wasn't there supposed to be something really massive happening right now? Then I heard the other number 3 say something. "Why are you all afraid?" I was becoming dumbstruck. I was feeling as if everything I've learned before didn't make any sense anymore. The other 3 kept on talking. "Y'all don't have to act so crazy. Everything's fine." And I said to myself, no, everything is not fine. None of the numbers are supposed to repeat in the same line or in the same larger squares. But then I started to look around. Numbers were repeating everywhere, in many lines and in many larger squares. I didn't really know what I was supposed to think anymore. Then the other number 3 said, "You know, this isn't really such a bad place." I saw the other scared numbers starting to loosen up. Soon I was just one of a handful of previously freaked out numbers looking at this new grid as if we were watching it from the sidelines. Then the other numbers moved on, and I was on my own. I was still a bit shaken, but I decided to be strong and give this grid a really hard look. Yeah, it was really uncomfortable to see so many numbers in different places than where they were supposed to be. But you know, I did notice something. All of the numbers were happy where they were. All of them except me. And I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe I'm acting like a stupid fool. Maybe there isn't anything wrong. It was really hard to do, but I gave it up with the rules and decided to try to accept things as they were. It felt totally weird at first, but I gotta admit, I was surprised. Things were actually okay the way they were, and I really couldn't argue it. I was a total fool. So I decided to let myself go. And again, it felt weird, but again, I was fine. It was like a revelation. That was when I started to understand what it really meant to be free. And you know what? It did feel wonderful. I couldn't lie. The other number 3 noticed and smiled, and I smiled back. I was feeling happy again. And then something very massive started happening all around us. Something incredible, something magnificent. I woke up. I sat up and took off my eye pillow, and I said to myself, I got it.